The man in front of me walked into the office area and couldn't stop looking cold. Shin Imo picked up his mobile phone and checked it, trying to find out where Fujio was, so he found his way to his seat only to find that the examiner had already left. Manager Lee is a little weak. This 19th quality is too bad, and also do not comply with the test regulations. Shin Imo understood the implication of his words, so it was him who drove Fujio away. Manager Lee explained, "That loser is really bad. It's lucky you didn't see him," and he asked Fujio Chom to measure his hand speed. He didn't want to and tore the report card to shreds. Manager Lee already knew that this man was determined to cause trouble at the club, but Shin Imo was worthy of being the president and decisively asked the candidates on the side what had gone wrong. After arguing for a while, they said that as long as Manager Lee was still around, they wouldn't join the Imperial League battle team. The man on the side was obviously a bit angry. He was asked to keep an eye on the test, not for him to kick him out, but Manager Lee couldn't figure it out at all. "Isn't that the rule?" But Shin Imo angrily pointed at the computer. "Look what you've done." Manager Lee knew he was in the wrong, and after silently looking over, he actually let out a fierce howl. "I didn't expect Fujio to be so good. His score is actually close to full marks. Do you want to know who introduced him to the inner circle? Of course it was him." Shin Imo said he had a gloomy face, as if he wanted to swallow Manager Lee into his stomach. Manager Lee was beyond flustered at this point, stumbling and shouting at his top man. Obviously Shin Imo does not intend to give him the opportunity to directly pack up and dismiss to go. Meanwhile, Fujio has come to the hot pot restaurant with his new friend. They stood frozen at the door, not expecting such a big welcome inside. He stared blankly at the menu in his hand. "Is this what you call an ordinary hot pot restaurant?" What's even more unexpected is that this hot pot restaurant called out to the young master of the friend who brought her here. Young master shyly touches his head. "What do you want to eat? I'll ask them to get it for you." At this time Fujio, out of words to pick wiping, did not expect to participate in an internal signing, but also to pick up a rich second generation. The young master was even more shy, saying that he had no money and could only eat hot pot. Fujio happily patted him. "You're afraid you're the cutest rich second generation I've ever seen." By this time the waiter had led them to the private room. The young master looked at Fujio suspiciously. "Do you always talk like this?" His little face reddened as he stated that Fujio had been discharging electricity at him. Fujio was helpless and said that this is what it looks like to be handsome. At that moment, his mobile phone suddenly started to vibrate, and it was actually Shin Imo calling him. He had to choose to connect, and the person on the other side asked anxiously where he was. Fujio hung up the phone with a smile on his face, indicating that he didn't want to communicate with him, but he still sent a message to Shin Imo that he was having hot pot with a handsome guy. "I didn't expect Shin Imo to be so patient. He's bound to go to Fujio's location." Before he could wait for an answer, he moved forward with some haste. The employees at the back were a bit puzzled. Is Mr. Qin going to an appointment or to seek revenge? At this time Fujio's mood is very good. A moment may have a friend to come to mind together with the young master quickly said he didn't mind, and asked the waiter for an extra order of cutlery. Suddenly he seemed to think of something. He didn't know Fujio's name yet. Fujio was infected by his expression and answered his question in a good mood. The young master looked at the shining Fujio in front of him, not realizing that his name was also very chic, so he also introduced himself as Feng Shang, and his game ID was punch you in the face. At this point Fujio was surprised and the juice in his mouth spewed out. He's the one who, when he meets a little girl, the first thing he says is that his uncle will take you to the book and fly you around. Fujio thought that the man was a stingy man. It simply turned his perception upside down. Feng Shang inquired about his game ID and said that he would add a friend to play with him later on. So Fujio put down his chopsticks and prepared himself mentally after, introducing himself in an extraordinarily flat tone. He was the hot spade Z within the game. At this point Feng Shang is a bit petrified. Fujio just introduced himself as Z Spades. He began to brainstorm, and several drops of cold sweat actually began to break out on his forehead. Sure enough, he was beyond amazed that the most powerful player within the game, Z of Spades, is Feng Shang's idol, but the idol is sitting in front of him. Fujio looked at him with a helpless face, but Feng Shang said he wanted to be quiet first. Fujio also played Ben with Qin Xiao, and that snobbish manager actually didn't recognize him, but Feng Shang also hides very deeply. He is actually the younger brother of the golden agent Feng Yi. But he didn't want to rely on his brother, he just wanted to see how strong he really was. Fujio suddenly began to think, what Fengshan said was not unreasonable. Would you be interested in teaming up with me and showing those guys a thing or two? Apparently Fengshan was a little excited and asked Fujio what he wanted to do. So Fujio stretched out his hand and patted him on the shoulder in a nice brotherly manner. In 10 days' time, it'll be the selection contest, and the Imperial League will be signing players from here. He looked at Fengshan with confidence. When the time came, they teamed up to kill him first. Fengshan's mind instantly cleared. He can also form a team to participate in the audition, and together with Z of Spades, they will win the grand trophy of the tournament, and success will be theirs. After all, getting up close and personal with an idol is a rare opportunity, so without thinking, he moved forward and took Fujio's palm in his hand. He looked towards Fujio with confidence. His expression looked incomparably excited. They would definitely win. At this time the two of them were still talking eloquently. Shin Mo had already arrived inside the hot pot restaurant. When Shin Mo walked to the door, there was a surprising amount of laughter inside the door. He did not care to wait at all, and pushed open the door of the room with a direct look of scrutiny in his eyes. I only saw Fujio in front of me, still chatting with the little handsome guy he was talking about. At this moment, they felt the sight and all looked towards the door in confusion. I didn't expect the Shin Mo in front of me to be full of gloom, as if he was about to explode like a thunderquake. Shin Mo didn't explain too much and directly yanked up Fujio's clothes with one hand. Fujio looked at him somewhat sheepishly. This is not the Qin general manager have lost far welcome, he inquired with dissatisfaction. Fujio, what the hell are you up to? Fujio sheepishly hammed and hawed a few times, indicating that he had been clearly teasing. Shin Mo let go of him angrily. Did you call me over just to watch you do this? Fujio thought to himself that this person really couldn't take a joke. He was chatting with Fengshan about the battle group. At that moment he stretched out his hand and snapped his fingers at Shin Mo, only to see Fujio eyes shining brightly at him. The famous general manager Qin will still be jealous. Obviously Shin Mo wasn't thinking about this. He only felt that Fujio was too close to him, but Fujio didn't care at all, and when he had moved forward to try to tease, surprisingly, Shin Mo pushed him away, stating that he was heterosexual and to stay away when he spoke. But Fujio pretends to be innocent, unless he himself will not be able to resist. At this moment, Fengshan, who was watching the scene, kept covering his mouth to laugh at the two people who were at each other's throats. Obviously Fujio didn't intend to be arguing with him, and directly sat down on the stool with one buttock. There was a hint of appeasement in her tone, and she would explain all this to him herself. So Fujio explained that he went to buy equipment and just happened to bump into the third son Fushiming. Junior picks a fight with him for the mouse and the manager is just watching. His side of the hand speedily manager suspected that he was too fast, submitted the results and asked him to retest. So he lost his temper, too, and just tore up his report card, intending to leave. Shin Mo didn't give him a letter of introduction, and the manager spoke so harshly, he had to leave. Fujio helplessly spread his hands. This is how things are. I didn't want to make a scene like this at that time. Shin Mo, on the other hand, explained to him that the manager had already been dealt with, and that he would return to Qin's with him after dinner. But Fujio has some good face. He was so humiliated. Can he say go back, just go back? Shin Mo had to apologize to him, saying that the incident was his own negligence. Fujio accepted graciously. Let bygones be bygones. Let's just grab some meat. Shin Mo helplessly picked up his chopsticks and couldn't help but wonder a little, what was he thinking for him? But he was a little upset that the person in front of him was yakking with Fengshan again. Does the family know about Fengshan, the second youngest member of the Feng family, participating in the Imperial League's internal push test? Sure enough, Fengshan was a bit flustered and begged Shin Mo not to tell his brother or he would give him the inside track. Fujio was extremely protective, stating that he didn't want Shin Mo to bully him. He was now his teammate. Shin Mo was even more puzzled. Wasn't Fujio's teammate him? In fact, they want to form a team to participate in the audition. This last way to get into the war team. I didn't realize that he had one of his own, and was determined to enter the race without wanting to borrow someone's light. Fujio, however, felt that it was a bit of a downfall to enter the Imperial League so silently without getting into some trouble. That's when they finished lunch and Fujio thanked the rich kid Fengshan. She patted Fengshan on the back and invited him to dinner next time. Just tell him what you want to eat. Apparently Fengshan doesn't care about this. More than this, the battle team is a bit of a concern to people. Who are the other 3 guys in their battle team? He's going to hand out gold coins to everyone. At this point Fujio stopped and embarrassedly organized the language in his mind. It's true that there are only 2 of them in the team, so he can be proud of himself now. But Fujio was very confident, with him still afraid of not being able to recruit people. At this moment, Fengshan was a bit cold, and he looked at Qin Mo with some fear. He suddenly felt it was not a good idea to stay here and said he needed to leave first. It's just as well that he has a reason to leave, to go home and change his outfit and follow his idol around the world. So he left the place happily, leaving Fujio messing in the wind. Fujio looked at the front and then at Qin Mo, and in his heart he also wanted to leave somewhat. At this point he waved his hand sheepishly, indicating that he, too, must make haste to escape. But just as she tried to run away, she was grabbed by Qin Mo. He said he had a dinner party and he'd take him home afterwards. Fujio was embarrassed and wanted to refuse. After all, he was unfamiliar with all of them again. I only saw Qin Mo's eyes showing fierce light. Don't want me to accompany you to bring the boss? Obviously Fujio was a bit confused. So what if he refused? She hastened to say that she could still eat. After all, this was the golden father in front of her. At this time, Qin Mo was secretly relieved. Otherwise he really did not dare to do anything to her. So he suddenly suggested, for the sake of tonight's meal, that first we should go and get rid of the food. That's when they came to the door, and there was a handsome sports car parked outside. Fujio's mouth was wide open in shock, but the CEO Qin on the side had no ripples at all. This is a limited edition Lamborghini. I didn't expect it to be slowly opened by Qin Mo. He tried his best to hide the corners of his smug mouth. It was true that Fujio liked this sports car very much, so he stroked Fujio's head. Unfortunately, even if he liked it, it wasn't yours. If you work hard, you might be able to have it someday. Qin Mo was adding fuel to the fire, but it's unlikely. After all, it's the only one in the country. With that, he entered the sports car, leaving Fujio in his place. Storming out of the car, he thought Qin Mo was so generous that he could even give him a sports car, so he also rushed into the sports car to experience the throne of the world's limited edition sports car. That's when they got out of the car and came to the entrance of the mall, where they were actually visited by countless people. It turned out that he brought Fujio to the parts shop, only to see him walking towards the shop manager with a cold look on his face. There were also whispers from the waiters behind them, not expecting the god of Qin to come to this kind of place to buy accessories. The shop manager wasn't even there at the time, so the clerk had to take them in. Qin Mo's expression did not have a ripple, and took out the mouse that Fujio was looking at. However, the mouse is out of stock, but he will arrange for a transfer immediately, so please wait for a while. Qin Mo pointed at Fujio and warned them that in the future he would come over and give priority to him. The clerk honored Mr. Qin's instruction and immediately said it would be no problem. Fujio has a little bit of happiness. Is this helping me to find a scene? However, Qin Mo disliked her for freezing there and told her to hurry up and pick some favorite accessories. Sure enough, Fujio ran around happily, and Qin Mo settled the bill so that she didn't feel polite at all. Her eyes lit up as she explained that she planned to modify a machine herself. Qin Mo held up the black card in his hand, indicating that he didn't enter Qin's and that these things were returned to him at the original price. Fujio was shocked. He didn't expect Qin Mo to be even more excessive than Zhou Pai Pai. Why is he doing this again? Is he planning to fatten me up and slaughter me for meat? But Qin Mo had already settled the bill, so she could only sulk in secret. At this time Fujio had an idea. She reached out and touched Qin Mo's shoulder, instantly threw herself into his arms, saying that she had nothing to offer but a kiss from him. All the staff froze in place when they did this. Their Mr. Qin was being harassed, but Fujio was very cheeky. She came forward again to show that she had found something, until the two of them got closer and closer. Sure enough, Qin Mo's ears were particularly fragile. At that moment Qin Mo directly grabbed her wrist. He couldn't let her fool around like this anymore. Do you want to get beaten up? Now that you know to call me brother, don't get so close to me. She realized this was a good idea and immediately shouted out happily to Mo. So if she calls him dad, will he keep her? Apparently Qin Mo was a bit devastated and decisively refused her request. So he left angrily without forgetting to remind Fujio to follow quickly. There's something unusual about the camera coming into a hot pot restaurant at this point. Sure enough, Qin Mo's secretary is here, constantly looking at his watch time. At that moment there was a roar from behind him, a loud noise that caught his attention. He looked at the sports car in front of him. It must be Chief Qin returning to this place. So he greeted him happily and was just about to open the door for the big president when he was about to. I only saw Qin Mo take the lead to get off the car at the same time. I didn't expect the Fu family's young master to walk off the car with something in his arms. The secretary's uncontrollable ramblings. How could the president be with such a person? At this time Qin Mo reminded him to send you back later to hold it for what? When he finished speaking, he took his bag, intending to put the things in his hand in the car. It just so happened that Fujio also noticed the assistant across the street, so he looked back at him. The secretary looked at Fujio, who kept discharging electricity. He didn't seem to be like this before. Mr. Li and Mr. Zhang have already entered the meal. Should we ask your friend to leave first? Qin Mo was a little disgruntled. If he was attending on his own, what else would he bring Fujio for? At this point, the secretary was at a loss for words, only thinking that Mr. Qin must be possessed. Someone shouted, "Mr. Qin is here, he'll be right there." So they stood up one after another and kept welcoming Qin Mo, who was worth twice as much. He didn't respond to them, and asked Fujio with concern not to be polite to sit casually. They also saw the duo's pattern of getting along, puzzled and wanting answers from each other. Apparently Qin Mo didn't intend to explain. He just reached out and took the menu in the waiter's hand. After he slowly opened the menu, he surprisingly ordered a tripe. This startled the secretary. Didn't Mr. Qin think it was unhygienic to eat this stuff? I didn't expect to order beef meatballs. He'd never seen Mr. Qin eat processed meat before. I'm sure these are for Fujio. If not enough, she can add them herself. The co-op boss was a little puzzled as to who this one was who was being looked after by General Manager Qin. He calmly introduced to the crowd that the one he was looking after was his newly recognized brother. This odd introduction of his god brother also caught Fujio's attention. As expected, the bosses started to get close to the young master. He must be a great talent. I don't know how to address him. Fujio picked up his glass of water and said that his surname was Fu, and that his family's business didn't involve him much. The businessman realized that it was Mr. Fu. He had seen your father the other day. I heard he's so good at the game. He's been picked up by several teams. He's a young talent. So young Master Fu and his elder brother are worlds apart. That one is really something to talk about. His mother is also from the countryside. She can't read or write and she wants to start a company. Both mother and son are jokes. The secretary who heard this had a slight shock in his gaze. The old boss chimed in. I hear that one has some special hobbies. No wonder Fu wants to sever ties. If he had a son like that, he'd be furious. At this time Fujio put down the cup of water. It seems that both of you have never seen him. No wonder you two have recognized the wrong person. But I'm sorry, I'm the one you call the Fu family. At this point the old bosses could no longer hold it together and looked at him in immense shock. Even if they were brainstorming, they wouldn't know what to do to turn the page. Qin Mo sat on the sidelines and was a bit helpless. Fujio was still so fun-loving and playful. At this time, the boss raised his glass, indicating that he had the eyes not to recognize NT Tai and punished himself with a glass of wine. The other one also raised his glass. He was also confused and listened to the rumors. This wine must be drunk. Obviously Fujio didn't intend to let them go. She got up and wanted to say goodbye, but Qin Mo was actually planning to get up and leave. After all, he said he would send her home. At this time, a voice came from behind, asking Qin Mo if the business could still be concluded. Qin Mo let out a cold snort. They were really cheeky. They even wanted to talk business with him. Ignoring the obstruction behind him, he decisively led Fujio out of the room. They panicked and found Secretary Lian to help them talk to Mr. Qin that it was purely a misunderstanding. But the secretary wasn't going to accept stopped it. Mr. Qin is rather protective. Mr. Qin has seen your attitudes, so I advise you not to have any illusions. The president can even talk about his godbrother. What has this young Master Fu done? Anyway, it's a good thing they're there to stop him from messing with the Fu family's young master. At this moment, the secretary rushed to the car, following the instructions to send Fujio home. Fujio looked at him with embarrassment. I didn't think that you really treat me as a younger brother. The secretary looked quietly to the back, whether the atmosphere was awkward or not. Suddenly Fujio noticed his gaze and looked over to the secretary suspiciously. The secretary was a little shy, but she didn't realize that young Master Fu was glowing with light. At this time a big hand reached over and grabbed Fujio's chin. Qin Mo's tone is a bit unkind. Don't tease everyone you see. But when she smiled at Secretary Liang, she was just saying hello to him. He lets Fujio read magazines, and there's nothing to see in an old man like Secretary Liang. Fujio obediently flipped through the magazine, his mouth silently spitting out that this one was not pretty. So she happily came forward and said she wanted to read magazines that were all about beautiful men. At this moment, Secretary Liang remembered that Fu's young master loves beautiful men. He couldn't help but somewhat begin to wonder if the president wasn't being twisted by his, but he soon denied the idea, and their president is now in an online relationship. There's a leprechaun waiting for him inside the game, so the president definitely can't. Before Secretary Liang could finish his thought, he saw them getting closer and closer at the back. That's when Qin Mo confessed to him that he wouldn't care about his sexual orientation, but he won't be allowed to attempt to develop relationships with his teammates once he's in the team either. He'd better mind his own business and curb his hobbies. But Fujio was a woman herself. How did she fail to control her hobbies? Apparently there was some misunderstanding on the part of the secretary as to what the relationship between these two was. While they were thinking about each other, the car had already arrived at Fujio's home. Fujio hurried to the trunk, intending to carry his babies home. When she bent down and strained to pick up her baby, she didn't expect Qin Mo to notice her. Fujio actually revealed a small waist when he bent over. He tugged awkwardly at his tie, his mind not really thinking about anything. He only saw him violently tilting his head over, warning Fujio not to wear such short clothes again. As a man, it's simply too unmanly. Find a way to improve it. It's just as well he's going to play tennis tomorrow. She can come along after class. After all, as his brother, he can't look like this. The handsome man in front of him was whispering to the teenager in front of him. Secretary Liang at the back was also a bit puzzled as to what exactly the president was talking about in terms of modeling, but Fujio did not agree to come forward. Desert brother, you dare to say that I am not handsome? But Qin Mo hit her. You can only call this kind of good looking, and handsome can't touch the side. She still needs to work out with him and not play games at home all the time. Fujio was a bit scared. If this guy knows I'm a woman, will he pinch me to death? I didn't expect Qin Mo to be really cold and said he would come to pick her up tomorrow after class. She had no choice but to accept, so she invited him to brush up on his game when he got home. Without the slightest hesitation, Qin Mo indicated that he would also be happy to. Fujio stood in the doorway with his babies in his arms, looking towards them after they had drifted away. She then happily opened the door to her home, intending to go to her room and install the babies. That's when she suddenly felt something was wrong and couldn't stop looking at the room in shock. I didn't realize the room was a mess. Everything had been destroyed. She stood frozen in place with her baby in her arms, wondering what she was thinking about. At that moment a young boy came out, and he shouted somewhat eagerly. Fujio was also a little annoyed. What was going on here? The teenager explained in exasperation that a few of the poached team members had come to say goodbye. These men were only middle-aged when they were born, and Madam took great pains to cultivate them. Now that they have fans, they poach everyone and leave the company an empty shell. Yet they don't let the lady off the hook, saying she can't lead a decent team. In fact, Fujio also understands that the lady's greatest heartache is not them walking away. Instead, she was betrayed by someone she cared about, and there are no words to describe how that feels. When she heard the context, she asked the teenager who had come to the house. The top three on the ladder, Nye Su, Lian Shuguang and Zhang Yingchao. So after Fujio learned who it was, he picked up his skateboard and was about to walk out of the house. She explained to the teenager behind her that she had to go to the internet cafe for something, so she went out of the house and kept thinking about the battle plan. At that moment she saw the falling leaves in the air and lamented that it was really autumn yet. She slowly came to the door of the extremely slow internet cafe. The owner of the bar looked at Fujio and inquired if she still wanted half an hour. He said Fujio didn't need to press money. The machine over there just happened to be open to go over there. Fujio was a bit happy at the moment. She didn't think the internet cafe owner remembered her. Obviously the boss is operating at one time. Fujio will no longer traveling in space. Seeing the boss across the room without saying a word, his fingers clicked the mouse rapidly. She said she wanted to go to 12 this time and wanted a better machine. The busy boss turned back to her this time, asking for a good machine to play hero. At this point, the owner of the internet cafe didn't ask, and directly handed her an internet card. Today there happens to be a team doing a live broadcast, but Fujio was waiting for this, so she went forward, looking for the machine that would accompany her in battle. After she sat down, the first thing she did was to check the heroic ladder rankings. I didn't realize that there were really those guys at the top of the ladder list. Fujio snorted coldly. The little mouse changed his real name trying to solicit business, so she started to operate. Which lucky media line was better? She was still operating the computer with her eyes glued to it, looking for a line that would suit her. At this time Qin Mo sent her a message of inquiry. She had to stop operating the computer and explain to him that she was in an internet cafe. Qin Mo looked at the message helplessly. What the hell is this person talking about? His long fingers tapped the keyboard quickly. I asked you where the game was on the... Only to see a quick reply from the other side, stating that he had some things he wasn't brushing up on. Qin Mo had long since seen through her, so he quickly replied to him. Sure enough, Fujio was taken aback that Qin Mo had guessed that someone had messed with her, but she wouldn't admit it, hastily explaining that she was just looking for someone to POV with. I didn't realize that Qin Mo was a bit powerful and could subdue the scene for her. When Qin Mo saw her reply, his eyes actually gathered on the mobile phone and he couldn't move away from it. It would be great if he could come. At this point he put down his phone and slowly opened the game live. In-stream host asks teenagers, fans are concerned about your treatment. I heard that the three of them just changed agents. I wonder if they're any better now. The teenager asked fans to rest assured that they received justice and signed into their ideal team. She'd heard about the previous company, and it really wasn't doing well, but the teenagers pretended to be aggrieved, and it was only after much deliberation and some resistance that they decided to find another way out of the situation. Fujio in front of the computer is incomparably angry. A good deep thought, some resistance. Apparently presiding Ran has been convinced that she blesses all three with good things to come post. I'm sure the fans can't wait, but it's time for the big guns to get into the game. At this time, the live broadcast platform began to brush the screen. Since it is a great god, so dare to accept the live sparring. The rear control critic is a bit panicked. Did they have a bug in the back end? The in-game ring entered people as well, but they had no choice but to continue the broadcast. Sure enough, Fujio came to the game ring. I did not expect to be laughed at equipment rubbish. At this time there was a gasp of surprise from the people in the internet cafe. Isn't this the Z of spades? Now there is something to look at. The teenager within the live stream skimmed his lips and disdainfully sent a message across the room. This fan friend, seeing as you're still a newbie, you probably don't understand the difference between pro and non-professionals, but that's okay. We'll satisfy your curiosity and guide you through a game of, but who are you trying to fight? After all, they're all first class. The teenager was a little surprised. Did he really want to fight him? He was the highest ranked player on the ladder, but Fujio some disdain. Have not played how to know who will win. Is it that you do not dare to? The teenager was a little embarrassed. This fan friend was quite funny. He'd scat out a disgruntled sound, and in that case he couldn't spoil the fun. So let's have a fight. But his teammates behind him warned him that his opponent was just an amateur player, so don't take him too seriously. Teenage Rising Light is full of disdain, stating that he could end him in just a minute, so the rest of them all retreated, and only Rising Light and Fujio were about to fight in the ring. That's when the clock started counting down, and a few of the teens on the air were still a little disdainful. Fujio also waited for the time to come, intending to knock him out with a direct move. At this time the competition officially began. Fujio was the first to raise his weapon and swung it at him. Sure enough, the teenage Asahi Light fell backwards uncontrollably and was directly defeated by his move. At this time, everyone in the live broadcast site and various internet cafes were shocked but silent. Fujio confidently hung up a smile. This Shuguang is really nothing more than that. Countless people were incredibly shocked. A set of seconds by an amateur player. The newcomer of this professional team was really a rookie. At this moment, all the internet cafes watching the live broadcast are laughing at the players of the professional team. As the boss took the Coke and served it to the client, his afterglow caught a glimpse of Fujio's computer. His eyes were a little puzzled, so he intended to come forward and take a closer look at the. I didn't realize that this teenager in front of him was the famous Z of Spades. Fujio heard the sound and gently urged the boss to keep his voice down. The boss kept telling himself to calm down. We've seen it all before, only to see Fujio standing in the ring, saying that he can take him in seconds just by operating. Teenage Asahi Kari was a bit vain. The comments were really all mocking him mercilessly within the comments. I didn't realize that the hosts could still wash their hands of the situation, but the rising light god was generous enough to give up the victory. Obviously the players didn't take it well. It was such an obvious situation that the moderator could have lied about it. That's when the staff member held up the whiteboard and reminded her to interview that Z of Spades. Lian Shuguan also saw the whiteboard and struck the keyboard quickly with a wicked expression. Don't even pretend. You're here to advertise the accelerator plugin. Right. I didn't expect the comments to start reversing at 2 levels, and fans of the players on both sides actually started arguing. It would make sense if it was an outlier. After all, the pros are too strong to be defeated. At this point, figures suddenly appeared in the game, and heroes are never determined by their equipment. He slowly walked towards Fujio. Since you guys are so suspicious of him. Then he also played a game without equipment, but Lian Shuguan, who was on the sidelines, had frozen in place. I didn't realize that it was Qinshan Benjin, who only broadcasts live at the All-Star Carnival every year. Qin Imo was a little upset. After all, it was his younger brother. When was it someone else's turn to intervene? At this moment, the blood of countless players was boiling, and the live broadcast big screen was also directly thrown to his position. At this point, the hosts also got a little excited as Qinshan challenged our rookie. Countless players, of course, wanted to see the challenge and sent pop-ups with unbridled enthusiasm. However, some were happy and some were sad, and angry voices came from inside the office. He angrily dialed Qin Imo. After all, he couldn't just appear on the live broadcast platform. Qin Imo was in a somewhat upset mood as he asked Lian Shuguang if he was going to fight or not. Lian Shuguang was still in a state of confusion, and he was sure to be completely abused. So he asked Director Lee, a little torn, what exactly he wanted him to do. Obviously Director Lee is a violent temper. If you don't fight this time, you won't be able to fight in the future. The boss didn't poach you here to make you lose money. And don't worry about yourself. Pros are just pawns. Lian Shuguang sat back in some fear. The game has sounded the start of the countdown. His mood became incomparably apprehensive, and he could only beg the Qin god to spare him some face. Qinshan prepared for the action. After all, there was only one last second left. I didn't expect Qinshan with the most initial equipment to be able to kill a full-level Lian Shulong in one set. With the sound of being defeated, he fell backwards with a pained look on his face. The Qin god had a cold face, and there was a probing look in his gaze at this player.